It's tough out there these days. I mean, for a guy,
Yeah.
it feels like everywhere you turn, there's all these messages
Right.
about how you're supposed to look, how you should feel.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, a lot of it just feels well off.
Yeah.
Like almost like it undermines the very things that make you,
Yeah, it's a real paradox, isn't it? You've got this push for guys to be more sensitive,
I know.
more vulnerable.
Right.
But then at the same time, the media is just bombarding everyone with these images
Yeah.
of the ideal man,
Yeah.
six-pack abs, the
Yeah.
chiseled jawline. It's like, come on.
Totally.
Okay.
It's enough to make anyone feel like they don't measure up.
Exactly.
And that's what we're diving into today. This
I
whole
know.
mess of obesity, health, and personal responsibility, particularly for men.
Yeah.
Our guide for this deep dive is Fat Tax Nation, Reclaiming Health and Responsibility.
Interesting.
Have you had a chance to look at this one?
I have. Yeah, it's pretty in-depth.
It really digs deep into the costs of obesity, not just for us as individuals,
Right.
but for society as a whole, for the nation.
Yeah, even for national security, which I thought was interesting.
And they don't shy away from some controversial solutions either.
Like what?
Well, things like a fat tax.
Yeah.
It really challenges this idea
Okay.
that obesity is just a personal failing.
Yeah, it's definitely more nuanced than that.
It even brings up this concept of a war on masculinity.
That's an interesting angle.
I know. It sounds a bit dramatic, right?
Yeah.
But when you think about it,
Mhm.
all these messages out there, there's definitely this feeling
Yeah.
that traditional values, masculine values, are under attack.
I can see that for sure.
And it's not just men. It's not just us. It's affecting kids, too.
Oh, yeah.
The book really highlights this children's health crisis.
Right.
And these statistics about childhood obesity are truly scary.
It's pretty heartbreaking seeing a whole generation growing up with all these health problems, and so many of them preventable,
Right. And the book really digs into that.
Yeah.
It looks at parents, schools, government policies, all of it.
What about the food industry?
Oh, absolutely.
I feel like they're a big part of this too.
They are. And the book doesn't let them off the hook.
Good.
It talks about how they push all these sugary drinks and processed foods
Mm.
that are basically designed to be addictive.
It's tough to resist.
It really is. It's like we're being set up to fail.
Yeah.
But the book doesn't just point fingers. It goes deeper.
Oh.
It also explores the role of genetics in all of this.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, it introduces this whole concept of genetic predisposition to obesity.
So some people are just more likely to gain weight, even if they make healthy choices.
That's what the book suggests, yeah. Makes you think.
It does, right. It really challenges this idea that it's all about willpower.
Yeah.
But before we get into the genetics, let's unpack the obesity epidemic itself.
All right.
Let's get the facts on the table, the numbers.
Paint the picture for us.
Hmm.
It's exactly. What are we dealing with here?
Well, the numbers are pretty stark.
Okay.
The book actually cites the World Health Organization. They estimate that over 38 million children under the age of 5 were overweight back in 2019.
Wow. That's a huge number.
It is.
And what about in the U.S.? What are we looking at?
In the U.S., almost 40% of adults are obese.
40%.
Yeah, almost half the adult population.
That's a serious problem.
It is, and it's not just about the numbers themselves.
Right. There are consequences.
Exactly. Obesity significantly increases your risk of heart disease, type 2 diabetes, certain types of cancer, and a whole host of other problems.
It's like a ticking time bomb, not just for individuals,
Right.
but for our healthcare system, too.
Absolutely. The book points out that obesity costs the U.S. economy billions of dollars every year in healthcare expenses and lost productivity.
So what's the answer?
That's the big question, right?
Is it all about personal responsibility, like the title suggests?
Well, the author definitely emphasizes that.
Okay.
He argues that we need to take ownership of our health and make better choices.
Sure, but is it really that simple?
It's not that simple. He acknowledges that, too.
Okay.
There are other factors involved: societal pressures, the food environment, even government policies.
It's all connected.
It is, and he uses personal stories to illustrate these points.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Well, he talks about this guy, Jerry, who loses a lot of weight and ends up landing his dream job.
So taking control of his health really transformed his life.
Yeah, it's a powerful example.
Right. But not everyone has the same opportunities.
Right. And the book addresses that, too. He talks about food deserts, these areas where healthy food is scarce.
Right, and fast food is abundant.
Exactly.
It makes you wonder how much choice people really have in those situations.
It does, and then there's the affordability factor.
Yeah, fresh produce can be expensive.
especially for families struggling to make ends meet.
So it's clear this is a complicated issue. But let's shift our focus for a moment to kids.
Okay.
What does the book have to say about childhood obesity?
Well, he calls it a ticking time bomb, and for good reason.
It's tough to think about these kids starting life with that kind of disadvantage.
It is, and he talks about how parents play a crucial role.
Right, in shaping those early eating habits.
Exactly. He even shares his own experience growing up
Oh.
in a household where sugary drinks were just a normal part of life.
I can see how those habits would be hard to break later on.
It's like programming.
And then there's school.
Oh, yeah.
The book points out that a lot of schools are actually contributing to the problem.
How so?
Well, they're serving unhealthy lunches.
You mean like those pictures we saw online a while back?
Exactly, those processed meals.
Yeah, those are pretty bad.
Not exactly the kind of fuel kids need.
No, not at all.
So the book is advocating for stricter standards for school lunches
Makes sense.
and more education about nutrition.
It's about creating a healthier environment for kids.
Exactly. It's not just about what's happening at home,
Right.
but the environment they're exposed to at school, too.
And it goes even further than that.
Oh,
The book also examines government policies.
okay. I'm intrigued. What kind of policies?
Well, he discusses the government's efforts to provide low-cost meals,
Okay.
which unfortunately often means serving food that's high in calories but low in nutrients.
It's kind of ironic, isn't it?
It is.
Policies designed to help sometimes end up making the problem worse.
And then there's the decline of physical education in schools.
Remember when PE was a regular part of the curriculum?
Yeah, we were out there running around playing sports.
Getting real exercise.
Now it seems like it's all about standardized tests and screen time.
It's no wonder kids are spending more time sitting than playing outside.
And it's not just the kids. Adults are increasingly sedentary, too.
We're a nation of couch potatoes.
Pretty much.
And technology plays a big role in that.
Absolutely. We're constantly bombarded with information and entertainment.
Right.
It's so easy to be passive.
Yeah, it's a slippery slope for sure.
It is.
Now, the book doesn't just focus on the U.S.
No.
No, it looks at global perspectives on obesity, too.
That's interesting.
It dives into how different cultures and countries approach the issue.
Like, give me an example.
Well, he talks about how in some cultures, obesity is seen as a personal failing,
Okay.
while in others, it's viewed more as a health issue.
That's a big difference.
It's a huge difference in perspective.
It makes you realize how much culture shapes our views on this.
Totally. And government policies vary, too.
How so?
Well, some countries have implemented taxes on sugary drinks, for example.
He mentions Denmark, right?
He does, yeah. They were the first to introduce a fat tax back in 2011.
Did it work?
Initial studies suggested it might have reduced consumption of unhealthy foods.
Interesting.
Makes you wonder if that could be a solution here in the U.S.
Yeah, it's definitely a controversial idea.
And the book doesn't shy away from that controversy at all.
Good, I like that.
It really explores the pros and cons, both sides of the argument.
Okay, so what are some of the arguments against it?
Well, one concern is that it could disproportionately affect lower-income people.
Because they tend to rely on cheaper, less healthy options.
Exactly. And some argue it's an infringement on personal freedom.
Right, people should be able to choose what they eat.
I can see both sides of that.
Mm-hmm.
But the book also presents some strong arguments for a fat tax.
Like what?
Well, it argues that it could generate revenue that could then be used to fund health initiatives.
Okay, so it could potentially offset some of the negative impacts.
That's the idea, and it could also act as a deterrent.
Right, encouraging people to make healthier choices.
Hit them where it hurts, their wallets.
Exactly, and the book also argues that the government has a responsibility to step in when we're facing a health crisis like this.
That's a bold statement.
It is. It challenges this traditional idea of personal responsibility.
Right, suggesting that sometimes we need a little nudge.
Exactly.
It's a fascinating debate.
It really is.
And things get even more complex when you bring genetics into the equation.
All right, let's dive into that.
This is where the book really starts to challenge conventional wisdom.
Okay, I'm ready.
It introduces this concept of genetic predisposition to obesity.
So you're saying some people are simply more prone to weight gain because of their genes?
That's what the research suggests, yeah.
So it's not always about willpower or laziness.
Not necessarily. Lifestyle choices still matter, but we can't ignore the influence of genetics.
That's a pretty radical idea.
It is, and the book gets specific. It talks about genes that are linked to weight gain.
Like what?
Well, one example is the FTO gene, which is involved in regulating energy balance.
So some people might be fighting an uphill battle from the start.
Exactly. And understanding our genetics could lead to more personalized approaches to weight loss.
You mean like tailored diets and exercise plans based on your genes?
Precisely. It's a whole new way of thinking about this.
This is fascinating.
It is, right? It's not just about telling everyone to eat less and exercise more.
It's more nuanced than that.
Much more nuanced. There's this whole other layer.
It's like personalized medicine for weight loss.
Yeah, exactly. And the book even talks about gene therapy.
Gene therapy. Now that's getting futuristic.
I know, right? It sounds like science fiction.
It does, but it's becoming a reality.
So we might actually be on the verge of a major breakthrough in the fight against obesity.
It's possible.
But even with all these advancements, the book emphasizes that personal responsibility is still crucial.
So it's not a free pass to eat whatever you want.
Definitely not. Even with a genetic predisposition, your lifestyle choices still matter.
That makes sense.
This is a lot to take in.
It is, right.
We've got societal pressures, the food industry, genetics, gene therapy. It's overwhelming.
It's a lot to process.
But the book does a good job of breaking it down,
Yeah,
making it understandable, even for those of us who aren't scientists.
I agree.
It's definitely making me rethink my own approach to health. What about you? What's your biggest takeaway so far?
I think the biggest takeaway for me is that obesity is a multifaceted issue. It's not just about individual choices, although those are important.
Right. There are so many factors.
We need to consider the food environment, government policies, even our own genetics.
It's like we're all caught in this web of influences.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to have these conversations.
Absolutely.
To challenge the status quo and explore solutions from multiple angles.
Well said. And for our listeners who might be feeling overwhelmed, remember, change starts with small steps.
One step at a time.
You don't have to overhaul your whole life overnight.
Just focus on one small change.
Like taking the stairs instead of the elevator.
Or swapping out sugary drinks for water.
Exactly. Those small changes can add up.
And don't underestimate the power of community either.
Oh, that's a good point. It's easier to stay motivated when you're not doing it alone.
Surround yourself with supportive people.
People who are also on this journey.
Yeah, it makes a big difference.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground already.
We have.
Where do we go from here?
Well, next we're going to explore the unique challenges that men face when it comes to body image and health.
Right. We're getting into the heart of this war on masculinity.
And we're going to unpack all of that.
It's a sensitive topic.
It is.
But it's crucial to address if we want to create a healthier society for men.
Couldn't agree more.
Stay tuned, folks. We're about to get real.
All right, so let's dig into this war on masculinity thing and see how it ties into this male obesity crisis.
You know, I got to admit, whenever I hear that phrase war on masculinity, I picture like guys in armor, you know, swords and shields. But I'm guessing it's a little more subtle than that in reality, right?
Definitely. Yeah, it's less about like actual combat and more about a cultural shift.
Okay.
Like a questioning of traditional ideas about what it means to be a man.
Okay.
The book argues that this shift, while, you know, well-intentioned, it can have some unintended consequences because it comes to men's health.
So how does this war actually play out, like in everyday life?
Well, think about the messages guys are constantly getting from the media.
You mean like those super ripped, chiseled models you see everywhere?
Exactly. It creates these unrealistic expectations.
Right, like those guys are just walking around on the street every day.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, come on.
Makes a lot of guys feel inadequate.
Yeah, like they're not man enough.
Exactly.
And when they feel that way, when they don't measure up to these impossible standards, what happens?
Well, some guys might turn to unhealthy coping mechanisms like overeating or drinking too much.
That's a way to numb those feelings.
Exactly.
I get it.
The book also talks about this pressure on men to be stoic, you know, to keep their emotions bottled up.
Even when they're struggling, even with health issues.
Especially then.
It's like they're trapped in this box, you know, confined by these narrow definitions of masculinity.
It can be really damaging, both physically and mentally.
So obesity can obviously lead to all sorts of health problems.
Right.
But it can also, like, trigger depression, anxiety, even social isolation.
Absolutely. And for men who are already dealing with body image issues, it can be a vicious cycle.
It's like adding insult to injury.
Totally.
You're dealing with the physical stuff, but then also these emotional and psychological challenges on top of that.
And it's not just the media either.
No?
The book also brings up the role of religion.
Religion, how does that fit in?
Well, he argues that some religions historically have promoted a certain image of man,
Okay.
one that's physically imposing, strong.
Like those statues of Greek gods, all muscles in perfect proportions?
Exactly. And those images, even subconsciously, can
Wow.
contribute to feelings of inadequacy.
Yeah, for guys who don't fit that mold.
It reinforces this idea that physical strength is the ultimate measure of manhood.
It's interesting, isn't it? We're getting hit with these idealized images from everywhere.
Yeah.
Media, religion. It's no wonder so many guys feel this pressure.
And when they can't live up to it,
Right.
when they feel like they're falling short,
Yeah.
it can lead to these unhealthy habits.
So what's the solution? How do we break free from these expectations?
The book suggests we need to reclaim masculinity,
Okay.
but in a way that's more balanced, more authentic.
What would that look like in real life?
It's about recognizing that true strength isn't just about how you look.
Okay.
It's about emotional resilience,
Okay.
self-awareness, and having the courage to ask for help.
So not rejecting traditional masculinity, but redefining it
Exactly.
in a way that's healthier.
More fulfilling.
That's a powerful message.
It
And
is.
something I think a lot of guys need to hear.
I agree. And the book also stresses the importance of positive role models.
You mean men who embody this healthier version of masculinity?
Exactly. Men who are comfortable in their own skin,
Right.
who are open about their struggles, and who prioritize their well-being.
So it's about having examples to follow, right? Men who show us that it's okay to be both strong and vulnerable.
Exactly. And the book also highlights the need for more targeted health initiatives.
Not just generic campaigns, but stuff specifically designed for men.
Exactly. Programs that address the unique challenges men face.
Like this reluctance to seek help.
Yeah, and there are some great examples out there.
Like what?
Well, there's this campaign in Australia called Beer and Bacon.
That's a great name.
It uses humor and relatable scenarios
Okay.
to encourage men to make healthier choices.
That's awesome. Meeting men where they are,
Exactly.
using a language they can connect with.
Making it less intimidating.
This is all really interesting stuff.
It is.
It's making me think about masculinity in a whole new light.
I think that's a good thing.
So where do we go from here? Like big picture, what needs to happen?
The book argues for a multifaceted approach.
Okay.
We need to address the food environment, promote healthy eating from a young age, and continue researching the role of genetics.
So looking at it from all angles.
Exactly. And we need to keep having these conversations, even if they're difficult,
About the impact of obesity.
on individuals and society as a whole.
It's time to stop tiptoeing around the issue.
I agree. We need to face it head on.
Now, before we wrap up this part,
Okay.
I want to go back to the link between obesity and mental health.
Right. That's a crucial aspect.
We can't overlook that.
The book goes into detail about the psychological and emotional side of this.
It's not just about body image.
It's not. Obesity has been linked to a higher risk
Okay.
of things like depression, anxiety, even bipolar disorder.
It's a two-way street, right?
Yeah,
Obesity contributes to mental health problems.
right.
And those same problems make it harder to manage your weight.
It's a vicious cycle.
And the book suggests that addressing those underlying psychological factors is key.
For lasting weight loss.
So what are some of the key factors?
Well, one of the biggest is stress.
Okay.
The book talks about how stress can trigger overeating.
Oh, I can definitely relate to that.
It's a common coping mechanism.
Yeah, when I'm stressed, I reach for the comfort food.
It's understandable.
The book also talks about the link between childhood trauma
Right.
and obesity. Trauma, how does that play in?
Studies show that people who have experienced trauma,
Okay.
whether it's physical, emotional, or sexual abuse,
Right.
are statistically more likely to be obese later in life.
Wow, I never would have made that connection.
It's complex, but the point is,
Okay.
obesity isn't always about willpower.
Right. There can be deeper issues.
And the book encourages readers to seek professional help if
Absolutely.
they're struggling with emotional eating,
It's about recognizing when you need support,
to develop healthier coping mechanisms,
taking a holistic approach.
addressing both the physical and the emotional.
That's great advice.
I think so.
Now, I know we focused on the negative, but the book also talks about body positivity.
Yeah, it's important to strike a balance.
Right. Acknowledging the health risks, but also promoting self-acceptance.
A positive body image.
It's about being healthy and happy.
Exactly. Health comes in all shapes and sizes.
So it's not about striving for some impossible ideal.
No, it's about being the best version of yourself.
That's a great message.
I think so.
Now, I'm curious about this non-exercise physical activity, or NEAT.
Oh yeah, neat.
It's a mouthful.
It is, but it's a simple idea.
Okay.
It's all the activity you do outside of structured exercise.
So walking, cleaning, gardening,
Even fidgeting.
those little movements we make without thinking about it.
Exactly, and the book argues that NEAT can play a big role in weight management.
Really? I wouldn't think those little things would matter that much.
You'd be surprised, especially when you consider how much time we spend sitting.
True. At our jobs, commuting, even leisure time.
We're glued to our screens.
All that sitting can't be good.
It's not.
So how do we increase our NEAT?
The book has some simple strategies.
Okay, like what?
Take the stairs instead of the elevator.
Oh, right.
Park further away from your destination.
So you have to walk more.
Exactly. Get up and move around every hour.
Those are manageable changes.
They are, and they add up over time.
It's about consistency,
Every little bit counts.
right?
And find ways to move more in everyday life.
Like walking during lunch break.
Yeah, or stretching while you watch TV.
Make movement a habit.
Gotcha.
This doesn't have to be a big production.
This is really inspiring. I'm seeing all these opportunities to be more active.
And it's not just about weight loss.
Oh,
NEAT can boost your energy, improve your mood,
okay.
even reduce your risk of chronic diseases.
So it's a win-win.
Absolutely.
Before we move on,
Yeah.
I want to touch on obesity in the workplace.
It's an interesting angle.
We often think of it as a personal issue,
Right.
but the book talks about the impact on businesses.
And the economy as a whole?
It's not just about healthcare costs either.
No, it's about productivity,
Okay.
absenteeism, even morale. It's like this hidden cost for businesses.
It is like a domino effect.
One person's health issues affecting everyone.
And the book argues that employers have a real interest in promoting wellness.
So it's not just about being nice.
It's good business sense.
Healthy employees are more engaged.
More productive.
It's a win-win.
And the book highlights ways employers can create a culture of wellness.
Like what? Give me some examples.
Well, offering healthy food options,
Okay.
gym memberships, encouraging breaks to move around.
Those are all good ideas.
It's about creating an environment where employees feel valued.
Supported.
Yeah, where
Yeah.
they feel encouraged to prioritize their well-being.
So it's about the culture.
Absolutely.
This is making me think about my own workplace.
It's something for all of us to think about.
It is.
This has been such a fascinating discussion.
It really has.
We've covered so much ground.
My brain is full.
It's about challenging our assumptions,
Expanding our understanding.
empowering ourselves to make changes.
For our listeners who might be feeling overwhelmed,
Yeah.
remember, start with small steps.
You don't have to do everything at once.
Pick one thing,
One small change you can make today.
and don't be afraid to ask for support.
Talk to a friend, join a group.
Seek professional guidance.
You don't have to do this alone.
You're not just doing this for yourself. You're
No.
doing it for your family, your community.
Even your country.
So what's next on our agenda?
Next, we're going to tackle the link between obesity and social inequality.
Ooh, that's a big one.
It's complex.
I'm ready.
It's an important conversation to have.
Absolutely.
Stay tuned, folks. We're going to get real.
So let's dive into this connection between obesity and social inequality.
All right.
It's a sensitive topic, but I like how the book approaches it.
Yeah.
It doesn't shy away from the hard truths,
Yeah.
but it's not about blaming individuals either.
No, it's about understanding the bigger picture.
The systemic factors.
Exactly. The social and economic forces at play.
So let's break it down. What are some of the key factors that the book highlights?
Well, one major factor is food deserts.
Those areas where access to fresh, affordable produce is limited.
Exactly. It's hard to make healthy choices
Right.
when your only options are convenience stores and fast food.
It's like the environment itself is working against you.
Yeah, and the book backs this up with statistics.
Wow.
It cites a study that found people in the lowest income bracket are almost 20% more likely to be obese
Wow. Compared to...
those in the highest income bracket.
That's a huge gap.
It is.
And it makes you question this whole personal responsibility thing, right?
It does, because how much responsibility can you have
Right.
when the system is making it so hard to even access healthy food?
Exactly. It's not enough to just tell people to eat their vegetables.
Right.
We need to make sure those vegetables are available and affordable for everyone.
Absolutely. And affordability is a huge factor.
It is. Healthy food can be expensive.
While processed food and sugary drinks are often the cheapest options,
It's like a double whammy for people who are already struggling.
yeah, they face barriers of access and affordability.
And then they're bombarded with marketing for those unhealthy choices.
The book points out that this isn't accidental.
What do you mean?
The food industry often targets lower income communities with their advertising.
It's almost predatory.
It can feel that way.
This is really eye-opening.
It is, and the book argues we need to take action
Okay.
to address these systemic issues.
So what can be done?
Well, one idea is to incentivize grocery stores
Okay.
to open in those underserved areas.
Make it more profitable for them to offer healthy options.
Exactly. Make healthy choices the easier choice.
Another idea.
Expand programs like SNP,
The Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program.
so people have more resources to buy fresh produce.
Give them the tools they need.
And the book also emphasizes education.
About nutrition and healthy choices.
Yes, but it's about more than just information.
Okay.
It's about empowering people to make those choices for themselves and their families.
Okay. Creating a culture of health.
Exactly, starting in our homes, schools, and communities.
And on a bigger level.
The book argues we need to address the root causes.
Of poverty and inequality.
If we want to reduce obesity, we need a society where everyone can thrive.
Where everyone has access to education.
Affordable housing, good jobs.
It's about creating a more just and equitable society.
It's all connected.
This has been incredibly insightful.
It has.
We've explored so
From
much
societal factors to body positivity.
to healthcare and the psychological aspects.
It's complex, but we've unpacked it.
The key takeaway for me is that there's no single solution to obesity.
I agree. It requires a multifaceted approach.
Individuals, communities, healthcare professionals, policymakers.
We all need to work together.
It's not just about personal responsibility.
It's about creating a society that supports health for everyone.
And for our listeners, remember, small changes can make a big difference.
Take that first step.
Choose one thing you can do today.
Walk, cook a healthy meal, reach out to a friend.
Every little bit counts.
Don't give up.
The journey to a healthier life is worth it.
It's a journey of self-discovery and growth.
And if you want to learn more, check out Fat Tax Nation.
It's available on Amazon Kindle and Google Play Books.
It's thought-provoking. It'll challenge your assumptions.
It'll empower you to take control of your health.
It'll leave you with a lot to think about.
And a lot to act on.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay healthy.